On numerous occasions, the intelligence community incidentally collected information about U.S. citizens involved in the Trump transition.
President Trump was right, and the mainstream media was wrong again. Will they ever learn? Some liberals are prepping for the apocalypse because they say President Trump could end the world as we know it. One of them is here.
Oh, was this exactly how they left it?
And I get an exclusive tour of the Reagan Ranch. Waters World begins right now. Welcome to Waters World. I'm Jesse Waters. On March 4th, President Trump tweeted this, quote, "Terrible. Just found out that Obama had my wires tapped in Trump Tower just before the victory. Nothing found. This is McCarthyism." All hell broke loose. And on Monday, FBI Director James Comey was asked specifically about the tweet.
With respect to the president's tweets about alleged wiretapping directed at him by the prior administration, I have no information that supports those tweets, and we have looked carefully inside the FBI.
President Trump was savaged by the media and essentially called a drunken liar. The Wall Street Journal editorial page saying he clings to his assertion like a drunk to an empty gin bottle. And check out the cover of this week's Time magazine. Is the truth dead? And the TV pundits were quick to pounce.
President Trump made a wild claim on Twitter. There's no evidence, nor is there any credible source who knows anything about intelligence who believes the charge.
Credibility crisis. President Trump's unapologetic defense of his unsubstantiated claims.
The president's charge is untrue, and he knows it's not true. At least he should.
They couldn't just keep their powder dry until all the facts came out. So on Thursday, Chairman of the House Intel Committee, DEVIN NUNES, dropped this bombshell.
On numerous occasions, the intelligence community incidentally collected information about U.S. citizens involved in the Trump transition. Details about U.S. persons associated with the incoming administration, details with little or no apparent foreign intelligence value, were widely disseminated in intelligence community reporting. Additional names of Trump transition team members were unmasked. None of this surveillance was related to Russia.
But guess who may not be cooperating?
We don't know exactly how that was picked up, but we're trying to get to the bottom of it. I think the NSA is going to comply. I am concerned, yet we don't know whether or not the FBI is going to comply.
Interesting. The president was asked about the revelation moments later.
Do you feel vindicated by Chairman NUNES coming over there?
I somewhat do. I must tell you, I somewhat do. I very much appreciated the fact that they found what they found, but I somewhat do.
So just like the Sweden comment, the Brussels terror attack, and the election, the president oftentimes gets criticized viciously for statements he makes that end up later turning out to actually be true. Just recently, the commander-in-chief was hammered for suggesting that some threats to Jewish community centers were made to, quote, make others look bad. Guess what just happened? Turns out a Jewish teenager was just arrested for making those same threats. Trump was right, but I don't expect the media to give him any credit. So back to the wiretapping. Let's put a very fine point on this so there's no confusion.
Would I be wrong in saying that the Obama administration surveilled the Trump transition team?
I would say from all I know, you're at least 99.5% accurate, and probably 100%.
Here's what we think happened based on multiple reports. Conversations at Trump Tower between Trump officials, possibly even Donald Trump himself, and foreign players, either heads of state or diplomats, during the transition, were sucked up by Obama intelligence officials. The Americans' names were illegally placed in intelligence reports, and because of a last-minute executive order by President Obama, disseminated widely throughout multiple intelligence agencies and then leaked to friendly mainstream media reporters. This had nothing to do with Russia and was designed to undermine the president-elect, if true. People are facing prison now. That's how serious it is. With the narrative quickly crumbling for Democrats, Congressman Adam Schiff desperately trying to divert attention and stoke unsubstantiated allegations that Team Trump was in cahoots with the Russians.
There is more than circumstantial evidence now, so again, I think...
So you
Director
have seen
Clapper,
direct evidence of collusion?
I don't want to go into specifics, but I will say that there is evidence that is not circumstantial and is very much worthy of investigation.
But this directly contradicts what President Obama's own Director of National Intelligence told the country just 2 weeks ago.
We did not include any evidence in our report, and I say our, that's NSA, FBI, and CIA with my office, the Director of National Intelligence, that had anything, that had any reflection of collusion between members of the Trump campaign and the Russians. There was no evidence of that included in our report.
I understand that, but does it exist?
Not to my knowledge.
The Democrats have contradicted themselves so many times at this point, you can't even listen to them anymore. And on the same day that this bombshell wiretapping information came to light, this is what CNN had on the screen. We can expect trivial news to dominate in the mainstream media, but the real question on the Trump surveillance and leaking is, what did President Obama know and when did he know it? Joining me now is former Trump campaign manager and founder of Avenue Strategies, Corey Lewandowski. So the former president and some of his officials, you know, might have to lawyer up pretty soon. They used to chant, "Lock her up." They might have to start chanting, "Lock him up." How serious do you think this is, Corey, if true?
Well, Jesse, look, there are some grave concerns here, I think, for every American if what Chairman Nunes said is actually true, which is individuals, private U.S. citizens on U.S. soil were being incidentally picked up by the intelligence community for doing a job in the private sector, which was working in the transition team. If that is the case, there's some grave concern there. And, you know, there has to be accountability. Not only were those individuals potentially picked up, but their names were unmasked. They were distributed to the mainstream media. And now multiple individuals know who they are and what those conversations took place. Those are felonies. And I hope that Chairman Nunes has a committee which brings these people and holds them accountable. And if they did commit a crime, I think they need to be held accountable to the fullest extent of the law.
I completely agree with that. But for some reason, after President Trump said what he said on Twitter, the narrative was the guy's a liar. And then all of a sudden you have new information that shows that he was correct potentially. And now the narrative is Nunes is the bad guy because he spoke to the press about this. And let's not even look into the fact that the president was potentially surveilled by the previous president.
Well, Jesse, look, I know I'm in Waters World, but really this is Bizarro World. It's unbelievable.
It's the same thing.
They want to attack the chairman. They want to attack the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee for going in and telling the president of the United States that he was accurate when he tweeted out that information to the best of his knowledge. And if that is the case, look, they want to make a disparaging comment. And you know what the mainstream media said? I can't believe the chairman didn't tell Adam Schiff immediately and went to the president. Who gives a care about telling Adam Schiff? I understand there's a protocol, but when you find out that the information that the president said seems to be accurate and that they have independent verification, I think that's much more important than sharing with your colleague.
Could you imagine if President Bush had incidentally picked up communications of then President-elect Obama at the Chicago headquarters and then had unmasked the names and then disseminated it to friendly outlets like Fox News Channel, for instance, and then Fox News Channel had reported these things in order to undermine President Obama? What do you think would have happened then?
Jesse, I don't even know what incidental pickup means. Neither does the rest of the American people. Either you were or were not listening to United States citizens on domestic soil, which is a crime unless you have a FISA warrant. Either you are or are not pregnant. You can't be a little bit pregnant is the issue. So they were listening, it clearly sounds like. This is insane.
Do you know
we have our federal government listening to the next president and his staff of the United States. If that's the case, that's a real problem, and everyone should be concerned about that.
It sure is. You know what it reminds me of? When the IRS incidentally targeted conservative Tea Party groups and had their paperwork held up for 2 years. It was just an accident. It was incidental. I mean, everything's always incidental. Nothing's on purpose anymore, right?
Well, there's nothing to see here. You know, there's nothing to see. Go look, move away, move away. This is insane. Jesse, can you imagine if this was Hillary Clinton and was she incidentally picked up? Do we know it was her staff incidentally picked up? Were they taping and listening to what was going on in Brooklyn, New York after, you know, her election loss?
Yeah, and do you remember?
This is crazy.
And Director Comey never even indicted Hillary because she didn't intentionally commit the felony. I mean, the whole thing boils down to... Yeah, the whole thing boils down to reading someone else's mind, which brings me to Comey. First of all, he answered kind of in a fishy way about whether or not the tapping took place. He kind of answered specifically whether President Obama ordered it. And then it suggested that he may not even be cooperating with a House Intelligence Committee investigation into this. What do you think's going on with James Comey now? Do you trust him?
Well, the big concern is that the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, who's tasked with looking into this, has said that he has concerns about the FBI participating in a truthful manner with this investigation. That's why they've gone to the National Security Agency to get the information. That's serious. That's a very serious statement by the chairman. And if the FBI is not cooperating fully, as they should, and if Director Comey is not cooperating fully with Congress to make sure that they have all the information available, then he needs to really think long and hard about his tenure at the FBI. Now, I'm not calling for Director Comey to step down, but what we do know is Loretta Lynch, as a former attorney general, would have been the individual who unequivocally would know if a wiretap was taking place on Trump Tower, because she would have had to sign off on it. This is the same individual whose airplane just incidentally happened to be next to Bill Clinton's airplane, and they incidentally talked about grandchildren and golf for 30 minutes. And then guess what? Oh, there's no indictment. It's amazing all the incidental things that take place with government officials. If this was in the private sector, they'll go to jail for insider trading. It's amazing what happens.
That's right. Well, that's why this is the government. And we can expect these things to continue as long as the swamp has not been drained. Corey, thank you very much. Liberals living in bunkers, prepping for the Trump apocalypse. One of them will be here to share his fears. California boycotting a plastic bag deal, conservative speakers, guns, and now Trump's border wall. But not just the wall itself. Democratic lawmakers in the Golden State are threatening to cut ties with companies who help build the wall on our southern border, even taking away retirement pensions and future projects. One of those lawmakers, San Francisco Mayor Ed Lee.
The wall is such a strong symbolism of division in our country that we don't want to have anything to do with it, including contractors that want to work for the city.
Just a reminder, San Francisco is the same city where Kate Steinle was viciously murdered by an illegal immigrant who crossed the open border 5 times. Joining me now with their take on all this, Fox News contributor Katie Pavlich and Julie Alvin, executive editor at Bustle.com. So, Julie, let me start with you. What is the difference between Christian bakers who refuse to bake a wedding cake for a gay couple and public officials in California refusing to do business with companies that build the border wall?
Well, I think one of those things is about, discrimination. And
Aren't
the
you
other
discriminating against companies that can do whatever they want?
First of all, I am as against the border wall as I think a lot of these California lawmakers are. I think it's a 16th century solution to a 21st century problem. And given that undocumented immigration population in this country is at its lowest since 2004, I don't think we need to be spending $24 billion of taxpayers' money on this right now.
Did you know that California already has a wall on the southern border with Mexico? They already have one.
Right, precisely.
Yeah. So are they mad about the companies that built that one?
I mean, what I'm saying is, you know,
are they going to pull their pensions too?
I don't agree with what these California lawmakers are doing. I don't think that this makes sense.
Okay.
You know, I think that, you know, cutting down on the illegal immigrant population in California, those people contribute $130 billion a year to the GDP. The economy is already going to be affected by that, and I don't think that we should take away the pensions and the livelihood of people who are participating in this.
Well, that makes sense because there's a lot of pensions at stake here. Katie, can California afford to boycott companies that do business down there on the border? I mean, this state's broke as a joke.
First of all, yeah, the California economy is a total disaster, which I'm sure the rest of the country will eventually have to bail out.
Right.
Second of all, I do want to reiterate that California has a wall of shame, as these liberal lawmakers are calling it, on their southern border with Mexico and San Diego. And guess what? It works, which is why they're trying to put it on other portions of the border. In terms of whether California can afford this, no. I mean, are they really trying to run out every single business and last remaining taxpayer in the state to keep their entitlement programs afloat? I think that all of these businesses that are being boycotted should leave, go to Arizona, go to Texas, let California secede, and then build the wall on Arizona's border to keep Californians out.
That's actually a good point. We definitely need protection against California.
Yes, we do.
Let me play you a soundbite of a city council member from Berkeley, and you can react to that, Julie. Go ahead.
The wall is divisive and works against our economic interests and is corrosive to our moral values.
So it works against our economic interests. There are hundreds of companies that now are at risk in California for participating in the wall construction. And I mean, they employ thousands of people. Halbert Construction, JT Wimsack Contracting, RE Straight Engineering. I mean, these people hire and provide health care for thousands and thousands of California workers. If all of a sudden they're getting boycotted, isn't that just hurting the state's citizens?
Well, I think what he's saying as far as this being against California's economic interests is the fact that, as I was saying before, illegal immigrants do contribute $130 billion a year to the state's GDP. So when you take that into account, you know, disallowing those people from entering the country could have negative effects on the state's economy.
But Julie, they also take away billions of dollars from the state's economy too. So it's I'm not sure if it all adds up. But listen, we got to run. Katie?
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us, and maybe we'll go down and build the wall ourselves, okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Did you know, after Bill O'Reilly hired me, he almost fired me? Stick around, a story that I've rarely ever told. Last week I gave a speech at the REAGEN Ranch Center to the Young America Foundation. Many students were in attendance, all smart ones, of course. I shared with them some stories about how I got started here at Fox News. Take a look. I was a child of the 80s. I was the Alex P. Keaton of my household.
I'm a banker, I'm not a magician.
I think around college, I started thinking, you know, what is going on? And all my friends at Trinity got jobs on Wall Street. They wanted to make a little money, obviously, and I thought, you know, let's go make some money too. So I tried to work in finance, but apparently you have to have a basic grasp of arithmetic to handle other people's money. So I had to find work at Fox News Channel. And I started literally in the basement of Fox, working Tuesdays through Sundays, 2 p.m. to midnight, minimum wage, freelance, no health insurance. Okay, so started at the bottom. And then a job opened up on The Factor.
Factor begins right now.
I went upstairs to interview with Bill. And then I said, Bill, I just read your latest book. It was phenomenal. And he goes, you seem like a smart kid. You start Monday. But the minute I got hired by Bill, he almost fired me the next week. So my first pitch meeting, I get up and I start, and he goes, all right, what do you got? Go. And I bomb pitched, and later that afternoon, the producer brings me into his office and says, Jesse, Bill does not think you're articulate enough to do the show. You have 2 weeks to turn it around or you're fired. So almost got fired. I spent the next 2 weeks freaking out, working till midnight, trying to do the best I could at these pitch meetings. I finally turned it around. So one of the next pitch meetings, I said, O'Reilly, there's this judge in Alabama, and he gave this guy a really soft sentence for child molestation. And Bill says, okay, Waters, you're going to go down to Alabama and confront the judge. We start tailing this guy through the back roads of Alabama. I'm Panic Attack City. Guy gets out of his car. I run up on him with the mic. Judge Bush, how could you do that? What were you thinking? And the guy looks at me and goes, I'm not Judge Bush. And I go, Judge Bush, what? And he goes, pulls out his badge. I'm a state trooper, but I'm gonna tell Judge Bush you're looking for him. So the first time I ambushed the wrong guy. Turns out Judge Bush found out I was in town, agreed to read an on-camera statement to me.
What's been reported on the O'Reilly factor is false. Y'all know it's false.
Do you have anything you want to say to the mother? Do you think you owe her an explanation, Judge?
That's it, guys.
That's it, Joe. And we bring the tape back to New York and we run it. Bill's pleased, but he brings me to his office and says, good job down there in Alabama, Waters. One thing. Your voice is too high-pitched for television. You need a speech coach. Me? I never had that problem. And after my speech, I got an exclusive tour of the Reagan Ranch, including some areas of the house that have never been shown before on television. So stick around, you're not going to want to miss that.
When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people.
You all remember Donald Trump being excoriated for those comments while launching his presidential campaign. But it turns out he wasn't so far off. Just this month, 18-year-old Henry Sanchez and 17-year-old Jose Montano were arrested for locking a 14-year-old Maryland girl in a bathroom and raping her. Sources say both of the alleged perps are illegal immigrants and were actually freshmen. Sanchez was actually caught by ICE this summer in Texas and released. This heinous crime could have been prevented. Here is one mother who has a child at Rockville High School.
I just don't want 18-year-olds and 14-year-olds mingling. I don't really want my child in with a criminal that is, that just walked across our border. The one young man was had already been convicted of a crime, and they had wanted to deport him, and so I don't want my son involved with him.
But get this, local Democrats, despite this vicious crime, are pushing a bill that seeks to turn the entire state of Maryland into a sanctuary state. This illegal alien gang rape garnered zero coverage on the network evening news shows, but the fake UVA rape case, courtesy of Rolling Stone, garnered over 11 minutes of network coverage. In Houston, Texas, a sanctuary city, 2 illegal alien gang members from El Salvador, Satan worshipers, are accused of kidnapping, drugging, and repeatedly raping a teen, even pinning her down and tattooing the Grim Reaper on her young skin. They allegedly murdered another teen that they had kidnapped. Take a look at these monsters at their court appearance, smiling and waving to the cameras. Sickening. Again, scant attention by the network evening news. And where I live in Long Island, police just arrested a 31-year-old illegal alien who has an extensive felony rap sheet. Days ago, he allegedly sexually assaulted a toddler and stabbed a woman outside a bar. He had been deported at least 4 times. This guy named Tommy Ventura punched, kicked, and slashed a woman on her face and allegedly sexually assaulted a 2-year-old and beat her upside the head. Past charges, including drug possession, assault, resisting arrest, DUI, and disorderly conduct, yet he still remained in the country and was an admitted gang member. In North Carolina, also this month, the illegal alien from Honduras, Oliver Funes Machado, has been charged with first-degree murder for allegedly beheading his mother. Again, network evening news blackout. So why is the media burying illegal alien crime and what can be done to hold sanctuary cities and states accountable. Joining me now is liberal analyst and publisher of Catalina Magazine, Kathy Aru, and Colorado State Representative Dave Williams, who is trying to push through the legislature a bill that would allow victims of crimes by illegal immigrants to sue the city where the crime took place. Now, Kathy, you have to admit that many of these crimes I just listed were preventable. Why would you not want these crimes to be prevented in the first place?
Well, I would. They're horrible crimes, but it's not because they happened in sanctuary cities. As a matter of fact, the Maryland case happened in a non-sanctuary state.
Well, the Houston case, the Satan worshippers, happened in a sanctuary city.
When sanctuary cities actually have less crime rates than other cities that consider themselves non-sanctuary.
Not true.
And it's because
not true, Kathy.
It's
you know what? Because we looked this up, and there's a study from many publishers from these colleges that say, Lauren Collingwood, assistant professor of political science at the University of California, did a study, and that said sanctuary cities and non-sanctuary cities have an even crime rate statistically, but if you really boil it down, sanctuary cities have a very small, higher rate of crime. So you're actually not right.
Well, I found a study that said the exact opposite, because people, either they're undocumented or documented, will come forward and report the crimes. And if they're afraid of immigration, they won't report the crimes. So sanctuary cities allow people to assimilate faster into the community.
Also not true, because if you are an illegal immigrant and then you do report a crime to police, they will not deport you for doing so. Now, let me ask you, Dave, why do you think the mainstream media is not reporting these crimes? Do you think it has anything to do with President Trump and his aggressive illegal immigration crackdown, or do you think they just don't want to do it because it doesn't make Democrats look good?
I think it's both. I think they want to do anything they can to oppose President Trump and his efforts to protect our borders and make our country safe. And yeah, it does make Democrats look bad. The truth of the matter is this: that Democrats have a lawless agenda to where they want to allow open borders and allow illegal aliens to come into our country and do whatever they want. And it makes them look bad. And I think the media is complicit, and they want to make them, they want to protect them and shield them from any sort of public fallout.
Yeah, the media is complicit in death and rape. Kathy, what's wrong with the border wall? Because if you look at some of these cases I just named, these guys been deported 4 times. How easy it is to cross the border.
Well,
4 times? Come on.
That's the problem with the officials. We have crimes in this country, and the funny part about it, it's men. It's not funny. Men are committing the crimes. So why don't we just deport all of the men, send them to an island? You and Dave can go to an island. Women will visit you, and then we won't have any crimes.
Then you wouldn't have anybody to go out to dinner with, Kathy. We would not want to deprive you from romantic dinners with us handsome men.
I would miss you dearly, and I would visit you in Aruba, but we don't need men. Men are the ones committing the crimes. So if we look at it, let's deport all the men, and then we have no crimes in this country.
And I think the men on the police forces are protecting victims from crime, too. But you didn't answer my question about the wall, because if someone's deported 4 times, they're obviously coming back somehow. So the wall's a joke. Let me ask you, Dave, what are you trying to do out there in Colorado to hold people accountable? Because right now, nothing is happening.
Right. What we're trying to do here in Colorado is I introduced a bill called the Colorado Politician Accountability Act, and basically what it would have done is it would have allowed victims or their family members to sue politicians and hold them accountable for creating the sanctuary city policies and creating this environment where the very citizens they're supposed to be serving are in danger. And I just want to hit on one point. It's not just men committing crimes. We have an illegal immigrant woman here who was held up in a Unitarian church avoiding deportation, who committed identity theft, along with other crimes as well. So this is not just men.
That's not rape.
Yes, women commit crimes too, Kathy. Oh, you guys are so well behaved.
We are.
Guys, thank you guys very much. Footage from the 1940s and 50s was finally declassified and released. The frightening footage shows what life would be like in the event of a nuclear holocaust. And many people unhappy with the results of the 2016 presidential election believe President Trump could create this kind of apocalypse. Some have even begun prepping for the end of the world. Joining me now, Colin Waugh, the creator of Liberal Preppers. So, Colin, what exactly are you preparing for?
We are preparing for
any disaster scenario.
So you're preparing
so
for a Trump-related disaster?
Whether it's Trump-related or not is irrelevant, but there are some specifics related to some of the things that President Trump has done that have scared liberals enough to make liberal preppers.
Well, give me an
and to
example
make
of
liberal
something
preppers
that Trump has done which you think might lead to an apocalypse scenario.
Our fear is over the First Amendment. When President Trump began attacking the media, I realized, and so did a lot of others, that a prerequisite to fascism is control over the media.
So you believe Trump might lead to some sort of fascist state? Is that what you're saying?
It's entirely conceivable. From what I've seen, from what liberals have seen, it would appear as if he is in it for himself. When I look at him, when other liberals look at him, what we see is more or less a businessman that hijacked the presidency.
Okay, so you believe tyranny is on the way and there could be some sort of civil war, and you're preparing for such an event. How specifically? We
have protein bars, we have canned goods, we have 140 liters of water. My wife and I am talking about. We have 2 firearms for defense purposes only.
Okay. And what are the firearms
and,
going to defend against, do you think?
Civil unrest. In the event that there is no civil accountability and civilians are more or less allowed to do what they wish. I mean, it's not exactly a secret that humanity is the #1 predator on the face of the earth, and we excel at nothing better than killing each other.
Well, listen, do you ever consider that you might be taking things to a little bit of an extreme, Colin?
No, I don't. If you look at the calls for division versus the calls for unity, it's about an 80-20 split.
Okay.
If you look at the rhetoric on Facebook, liberals in their own echo chamber and conservatives in their own echo chamber have literally started extremely aggressive rhetoric up and to death threats.
Okay. Well, let me ask you, if stuff does hit the fan, are Trump supporters allowed to come into your hideout and eat some of your rations and hang out for a while?
Well, you know, circumstances prevail. It depends.
Ooh, okay. So it's not an open invitation. Only certain people are allowed.
Of course, it's not
in your prepping household.
Well, no, yes and no. Okay. I mean, you've got to realize, you know, circumstances prevail, and it's not a black and white thing.
Well, listen, Colin, good luck prepping for everything. And
thank you.
I hope you have enough canned goods to survive the Trump apocalypse. And I'd hope that if I ever sought refuge with you, you'd open your door, because I'm such a nice guy. Thank you very much for joining us.
You're at least very entertaining. So absolutely.
And you are too.
Have a good day.
Thank you. For all of his accomplishments, President Ronald Reagan lived a relatively quiet, secluded life with his beloved Nancy. And nowhere did he enjoy spending more time than at his Santa Barbara home, nicknamed the Ranch in the Sky. Cameras are rarely allowed inside his home, but recently, Water's World got an exclusive tour.
So we're in the Santa Ynez Mountains north of Santa Barbara. We are on 688 acres, Ronald Reagan's home, Rancho del Cielo, Ranch in the Sky.
How often would the president come up here?
He spent a lot of time here. He bought the ranch in 1974 while he was still governor. When he was in office, one of his 8 years was spent here at the ranch, more than 350 days. So this truly was the Western White House.
Whoa! Was this exactly how they left it?
The home looks today like it did the last time the president was here. This was their only private residence during the White House years.
Got a game room over here.
Yeah, you know, we don't know that they played bumper pool very often, but we do know that Reagan celebrated Thanksgiving here each of his 8 years in office. He decided never to leave Washington at Christmas time because he knew if he was traveling, staff, Secret Service, they'd all be away from their families.
What a nice guy.
Well, you know, he was very considerate, and that meant a lot to the people who worked with him. But they would come out for Thanksgiving. There's not a lot of room to entertain here, so they put a piece of plywood over the bumper pool table, and that's where they'd carve the turkey. This was the main room of the original 1872 adobe. This was the most private part of the house. Very few people ever saw this part of the ranch, if they made it to the property at all. That chair, that's where he would sit and make official phone calls. So we know he spoke to Margaret Thatcher sitting in that chair, astronauts orbiting in the space shuttle from that chair.
I allowed to sit in the chair?
We don't let many people sit in that chair, Jesse, but you can do it today.
Thank you.
Do you feel powerful?
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Not a king. Two twin beds pushed together, strapped with plastic zip ties to keep the headboard from coming apart.
For the President of the United States.
For the President of the United States.
He was low maintenance, it looks like.
You know, he did have some unique needs. At about 6'2", he's a little bit tall for a twin bed, so they kept the bench on his side.
Where his feet hang
Where
off.
his feet would hang over.
That's classic. Love it. Oh, the President's closet.
Yeah, so the President's clothes hang on the left, Mrs. Reagan's on the right.
Calvin Klein, the guy had good taste. So you spend quite a lot of time with Ronald Reagan here at the ranch.
Well, I'm from the Secret Service, and one of my best jobs was riding with the president.
And where'd you guys go? Up in these trails?
Everywhere. Why don't you let me show you some spots?
Let's go take a look.
Let's do it.
Mind if I drive?
Oh, I want you to drive.
You might regret that. So is this where the lovebirds hang out?
This is Hard Rock, as the president called it. He scraped his initials and Mrs. Reagan's initials with the date, May 27th, 77.
Ronald and Nancy very much in love, weren't they?
Very much in love. One time, I signed an agent to her because I was with him, and I forgot to brief him. And we rode back in, but he got off his horse to help Mrs. Reagan down. And the president saw that. And he literally goes, John, he's doing my job. He pushes me out of the way. And he gets up to the agent who's got her by the waist, and he pushes him out of the way and said, this is my job. And she falls down into his arms, and they started kissing. And then he turns and says, I suppose you wanted to do that too.
Incredible. The press gave President Reagan a hard time throughout his 8 years. Do you see any similarities with the way the press treats Donald Trump?
Well, I think they're attacking President Trump even more. Ronald Reagan, it just rolled off his back.
Did you personally ever interact with some of the members of the media that covered President Reagan?
I did. I'd go out drinking with them, and I'd ask them, you know, why do you do this stupid stuff? And I'd get an idiot answer. They just think that what they say is what you should hear. And sometimes the truth isn't brought out.
So there was fake news back then also?
Yeah, that's right. Well, come and see Ronald Reagan's Jeeps. You know, as president, he never gets to drive naturally. So that's another reason why he loves the ranch.
Yeah.
He can drive. Not well, but he drives his own Jeep. This is his favorite room.
His favorite room?
Ronald Reagan, as you know, rode English, and Mrs. Reagan rode Western. And that's his horse, Ella Lemaine, who was crazy. Oh yeah, a lesser man couldn't have rode a horse like that.
What do you miss the most about the president?
His wisdom, how he loved people. People in the United States came first. After the attempted assassination, he just said, whatever God's given me left, I'm going to do it for the best of I can for the American people. And he always kept that front in his mind.